award-winning film Back of the Moon is a flick based in 1958 Sophiatown that follows the life of Badman, that journey of this notorious gangster that fights apartheid police from demolishing his house, and how on the last day of his life he suddenly found something to live for, a young lady named Eve. Moneoa Moshesh, Israel Matseke Zulu, Gumede and S'Dumo Mtshali are just some of the notable actors featured in this film. Now, without giving too much away, let's speak to its director and producer, the legendary Angus Gibson. It's great to meet you. It's great to have you on Morning Live. Thank you so much for coming.
I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Angus, we kind of get a vague idea of what the story is about, but I want to talk about the inspiration for creating a film such as this. I think looking at your track record, you're known for bringing stories that are close to people's hearts and that resonate with them.
Well, this particular one goes back 33 years, because I joined the Junction Avenue Theatre Company workshop, and they were making a play about Sophiatown. So I didn't know too much about Sophiatown, so I quite obsessively I sort of found out. So like I went to the city library, for example. I went through every drum magazine of the 50s. And I interviewed musicians and homeowners that lost their homes, and notably I interviewed the gangsters, who in the 80s were still, a lot of them were around. And they were a sort of diverse set of people. It's not as if each gangster was alike. They were all very different. From Don Matera, who was a poet and an intellectual, through Court Boy, who was famous at 16 for having killed his principal. So I then made a documentary in the 80s, which was a protest against the removals. And then 30 years later, I had the opportunity to revisit Sophiatown, and I decided to do something different.
Yes, and I want to talk about that fresh perspective, because a lot has been done around Sophiatown musically and in theatre and in film. How did you manage to get that fresh perspective? Or were you looking for specific things, or were you just inspired by what you had now uncovered after all those years?
Well, I'd done this sort of broad celebration of Sophiatown, and I've always wanted to do a gangster film. And I was so interested in those characters and their anecdotes. So the film is based, in a sense, on those interviews, which are very lurid and compelling. And so it's a world very rooted in what was happening then. And feels very much like what's happening now as well.
Yeah. What are some of the conversations or thoughts that you would like people to, would like the film to leave people with?
Well, I'm hoping that the film is a thrilling watch, that you sit on the edge of your seats. But fundamentally, it's a love story. So it is about the darkness of our world and the lightness. And ultimately, I think the love story triumphs in the film. And it's about a loss, because Badman is a person that should have been a community leader. I mean, he was an intellectual. He's a really smart guy, really charismatic. He should have been a lawyer or certainly a leader in the community, and instead he's a gangster, which is kind of how he was able to hold his head up as a black South African in that particular moment, in this bubble of Sophiatown. And Eve, on the other hand, is kind of a Miriam Makeba figure. Incredibly beautiful, great talent, and she is about to leave the country. So here are two figures that are kind of lost to the decades ahead of South Africa. So it's about that, but ultimately it's a love story.
Yeah.
And the gangster redeems himself through that love story.
It just doesn't live to see it.
Or
does he?
Well, I shouldn't say that. Yeah.
Let's leave that one hanging. Let's quickly talk about where people can go watch this film, and just anything else that you'd like to mention, be it about the lead characters or the music scoring or anything that you'd like to include.
Okay, so it's going to be in 25 cinemas across the country, so you should be able to find it.
That's exciting.
And It is full of the music of the period. Manhattan Brothers, Dolly, Miriam, it's all there. And it has a great score and an incredible cast. It was a very collaborative process. Many of the things that I love best about the film have come either from my crew or from the cast. They have little to do with me. So it was, we made it in a kind of crazy 3 weeks, and everybody kind of gave their all. So it is a labor of love, and the collective that made it love it, and I'm hoping that the audiences love it as well.
I have no doubt, Angus. We have watched your work over many, many years. We have loved everything you've put together. I have no doubt that this will also just completely blow us away. Thank you so much for coming.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Director and producer Angus Gibson, and of course speaking to us about Back of the Moon, that is released nationwide, 25 screens. That's a lot for a South African film, and that means we have to go out and support it.